What's up everyone, it's Brad with the Hodl fandom. A hot topic recently within the Veve community has been the banning and restriction of accounts. Now this is due to the bot detection software, which is intended to solve the massive bot problem. But an unfortunate byproduct of any software like this will be false positives, where humans are classified incorrectly as bots. Now I've done a bit of research and compiled a list of theories and tips to hopefully help you avoid being flagged as a false positive. Let's get into it. I first want to point out that while I'd like to think that I'm kind of tech savvy, I am not an IT professional. So for me to do a video on this required a bit of research. I searched the internet, I read a research paper on it, and even reached out to a bot software company. Even with that, these are all just theories, as we don't exactly know what software Veve is using or the criteria that they look at. With that said, I'm going to structure this video similar to my thought process here, by first establishing what bot detection is and what it does, and then transition to the theories on what could possibly cause false positives. But before we get into all of that, you may have noticed that I finally got myself some Veve merch, and that is courtesy of westriverapparel.com. They've got a ton of selection from tees, tanks, hoodies, hats, and even stickers. This is not a paid promotion. I bought the shirt that I'm wearing right now, plus two others, the Gray Common Club and the Navy Veve t-shirt. Now they did send me this hat for free, and I really like it. It's really good quality, and shipping was really good, even delivering here north of the border, here in Toronto. So check out westriverapparel.com if you want to represent what will be the biggest NFT platform in the world. So let's get back into the issue, and let's first look at a paper published at Harvard's Berkman Klein Center about false positives in automatic bot detection. Now, the software used here in this study uses a scale of probabilities when defining whether a user is a bot or not. They have a scale here from 0 to 1, where 0 is most likely human and 1 is most likely a bot. Anything that hits 1 or more is automatically flagged. So it's not necessarily outright things saying a person is a bot or not. It's like a running total, like a continuously changing grade based on your activity, which I thought was kind of interesting. Now, this study didn't go into detail exactly on what moves that needle between 0 and 1, so we'll come back to this article a bit later, and let's figure out what moves that needle. And let's look at a bot protection website. This website is from a company called Indusface, and they use 3 different techniques. Regarding the scale of probabilities, the first approach used here sheds some light as they establish a baseline of regular behavior, and they see if users' behavior deviates from that baseline. Now, I think we can also establish at this point that bot detection software uses both the balance of probabilities and outright events that, when fulfilled, are automatic bans and restrictions. The critical question still remains, what are these parameters that can move the needle, and what are those critical events that lead to outright bans or restrictions? To get help with this, I reached out to a company called Datadome that specializes in bot management for mobile apps, websites, and APIs. They have some of the lowest false positives in the industry, and one gentleman I got a hold of was really helpful. Now, we didn't get into the technical details, but he did help in answering some questions. Basically, they look at something similar. They form a baseline or a norm, and they look at deviations from that norm. Now, one possible thing they mentioned is changing IP addresses using a VPN. Personally, I use Surfshark on all my devices here, except when I log into Veve. If you're changing locations, maybe to access different shows on Netflix, my first recommendation is keep your IP address consistent when using Veve. Keep that needle pointed at human and not bot. Now, the next one here might sound kind of weird, but it's another thing that I brought up in the conversation. That was changing your display settings on a regular basis when using the app. And yep, he said that that is part of abnormal behavior that might get you flagged. Now, why would somebody be constantly changing settings on Veve? Well, here's a secret. It helps with drops. If the drop is for a collectible, not a comic, if it's for a collectible, when the timer hits 0, Veve puts the mint details on the drop page, and the Buy Now button shows up below those details. It's not like comics where the button is in the same place each time, before and after the timer hits 0. So if your font size is normal, at least for my phone, you have to scroll down just a little bit to find that Buy Now button. If your display and your font settings are small like I have here, you will get that Buy Now button on the same screen. It's just down at the bottom, but you save critical time from having to scroll down. So the lesson here is keep your display settings consistent when using the app, and especially don't change them with the app open. So one more thing I think about when establishing a baseline of your activity is, if you think about it, what do bots do? They log on, they go for a drop, and if they fail, they log off. That's it. If that's what you're doing, then you kind of look like a bot. My theory here is use the app, set up your showroom, interact with people, maybe even follow your boy, #follow for follow. Bots don't do that. Use the app. Now this next one came from an interview with one of our key community members, that's Daniel Lee, and he interviewed a guy named Superman who had his account restricted. Now, it's a great interview, I recommend watching it, and I will link it down below. One of the things that Superman noted was that his name in his account profile did not match when he did KYC. That caused an automatic restriction. Immediately when I heard of that, I checked my account, and I saw that I was in the same boat. I put my first name as Hodl and my last name as Fandom. That's obviously not my name. So the lesson or theory here is change your profile to match your real name, especially when KYC rolls out. All right, the next lesson here is from another key community member, and that's Hello K. He mentioned in Twitter Spaces that he had a friend that got a new phone and then logged both phones into Veve and got his account restricted. And this seems like one of those bigger criteria that doesn't just nudge the needle to say, hey, maybe it's a bot. This will outright get you in trouble. So the lesson here is when you get a new device, log off of Veve on the old device. All right, the next two are using programs that I think are not explicitly banned for use on Veve, at least not in the early days, but can be mistaken for bots. And the first one is an Android emulator, like BlueStacks or Nox Player, or anything that emulates an Android or mobile operating system on a PC. Now, I believe in the early days, Veve did say that emulators were okay for accessibility purposes, but that opened the door for it to be used maliciously and could get you flagged today. Actually, if you look at the T's and C's today, you can see that emulators are now listed explicitly as a banned product. So my recommendation is obvious here. Do not use emulators. These are now banned. The next program is an auto clicker. Now, for those not familiar, auto clickers can mimic a set of clicks that you program, and it can repeat it as many times as you want. Now, I can see how people may have used these when the spamming method would work on drops, but since that's no longer viable, I could still see people using it for rebounds. They just have to keep clicking that buy now button and hope for a rebound. My thought is, I wouldn't even risk it with auto clickers. The constant and repeated timed inputs are not humanly possible. That could get you flagged. The next items are not necessarily bot related, but they can get your account flagged. That's buying dirty gems or dirty NFTs. What I mean by dirty gems are gems that are a result of botting or fraudulent activity, and dirty NFTs are the same thing. Now, I think these are flagged not only for their relation to bots, but also how they can be related to money laundering. For dirty NFTs, let me give you an example of what I mean by looking at another platform, FIFA Ultimate Team. Now, I mentioned in another video, I was a massive trader on that platform in past years, and I actually got market banned. The reason? I bought accidentally a dirty player. I remember exactly what happened. I won't go into full details, but I was basically buying a ton of a Mexican player named Lozano, expecting that there would be an event that would require either Mexican nationals or Mexican league players. And he was by far the most OP Mexican right winger in the game. Now, I accidentally bought one for 50k FIFA coins, and when his average price was 5k. I had like 30 million coins at the time, so I wasn't too upset about it. I knew I'd make it back when I flipped the Lozanos. The one listed for 50k was part of money laundering within FIFA, which might sound weird and surprising, but it is a legit big business. What essentially happens is you have person A who pays real money to person B, then person B gives FIFA coins to person A by buying an overpriced card that person A lists on the market. My mistake is that I basically fat thumbed the transaction and I intercepted it. And that's basically money laundering within FIFA. Without a doubt, Ecomi wants to prevent this because, as opposed to FIFA, they are dealing with real money. And a lot of regulatory eyes are on crypto these days. So the lesson here is only use gems purchased within the app or use Omi to NFT when that goes live. For tainted NFTs, here's a tough thing. I have no idea or theory on how to solve this one. Sometimes you'll buy a higher priced NFT because you like the mint number. Maybe it's a low mint number, or that number has a special meaning to somebody. Now, I just hope that the bot detection software is not putting too much weighting on this, as I know people pay a big premium for some weird mint numbers. Just to conclude things, will all these things work? I have no idea, because we don't know what Veve's bot protection software looks at, and we will likely never know. If Veve reveals too much, it'll give advantage to the bots, and they'll be able to counter what they're doing. In times like this, I just like to focus on things that I can control. Whether or not these theories are true or not, I'm going to do the little things to make sure I'm doing what I can to keep that balance of probabilities pointed to human and not bot. There is too much at stake. There are too many assets at stake here. So for those not restricted, I hope these ideas, I hope these thoughts can help you stay that way and freely enjoying Veve. The concerning thing though is that there are false positives. It happens everywhere. There always will be false positives. Even that company I spoke with, Datadome, they have a 0.01% false positive rate. And if we look at Ecomi's past AMAs, you can infer that they have a 1% false positive rate. Now, going back to that Harvard paper, one of the conclusions was that the more strict your bot criteria is, the higher false positives you'll get. The less strict it is, the more bots you'll get. It's a very difficult balance. The fact is, false positives will happen. So it's a matter of finding and resolving those cases. So I truly sympathize for those people who are falsely banned. I would be really, really upset if I lost access to my assets and lost really the opportunity cost to work the market. The light at the end of the tunnel for these people, at least from my opinion, from my perspective, is the track record of the Ecomi team. Now, in my eyes, they have a reputation of actively trying to keep the customer experience positive. During the Ultraman drop debacle, they gifted those negatively affected with a secret rare poster. They listened to the community about the drop system, and despite their original intent to keep it the same, they listened and are working to change it to a waiting room system. Recently, during the Sue Storm drop, we complained about it not being a blind box, and they listened and quickly changed it. There are many other examples. Now, their timing and expectations of when things happen, that definitely needs work. But to me, they do try to focus on making that customer experience a positive one, especially when there is community backlash. I personally don't know any of the team, but I am almost certain it's on their radar, especially because of how big this has become. And if I were to make a bet, I would say they will follow the same pattern, which again is listening to what the community is saying and then addressing it. The thing is, I can also imagine that if I were them, I'm taking a measured approach to this. And firstly, trying to work with my bot protection software provider to figure out what's going on, and then developing a long-term and sustainable solution before communicating out what that is. So in my mind, it's not a matter of if, it's when they come out with a holistic resolution. I do hope it's sooner than later, because I truly do sympathize with all those who are affected. Anyways, I hope you found this useful. Please consider liking, subscribing, and following, and I'll see you in the next video.